everybody for showing up. For those of you who do not know us, I'm Gregory here Raymond.
I'm Laz Madish.
And we are the authors of the book you're about to read or hear from, Kinetic, the First Alliance. It is the first book in a trilogy, possibly saga. It is a science fiction book that takes place on Earth. It involves teenagers who develop superpowers to defend our planet from an evil alien race that's coming to enslave and mine our resources. So,
more importantly, we try to capture what it feels like to be ripped away from your family and friends to defend the Earth, from a fight they had nothing to do with. So we try to capture that more than anything. But there is a lot of action. There's romance. There's everything. So we're gonna go ahead and start off with reading the first chapter.
Yes.
And if there's enough time, we're gonna shoot over to another chapter and just give you a little bit of some variety.
So the first chapter, it is going to introduce our main character. His name is Alexander Carter. He is a young teenager from Houston, Texas. I'm going to be reading the parts of the narrator and Alex, and Lad's going to be taking the other parts, just to kind of break it up so it's a little bit different. You guys have been to book readings before, and where it's just one person, so we want to make it more fun. So we have a couple people. Okay, here we go. Chapter 1. Farewell Days of My Youth. There's rarely ever a time in a person's life that they're ready when called upon. Usually it happens at the most inconceivable moment. But when thrown into an intergalactic war of worlds, what choice do you really have? Right and wrong, good and evil, heart and mind, it would be so much easier just to run away from these conflicts. Alex, however, was about to learn that courage is not the absence of fear, but rather the judgment that something else is more important than fear. Even more important is the knowing that real heroes are just people who fear running away from conflicts more than they fear death itself. However, the irony of life is that without struggle, you'll never know what you're truly capable of. Something Alex was going to find out the hard way. Mankind may never understand how thin the line between good and evil really is. Who decides who is right and who is wrong? Usually it's decided by the victor. But this time around, we're supposed to entrust the survival of humanity to the hands of a teenager who's only sure that he's impossibly unsure. What kind of messed up joke is that? The smart thing to do would have been for him to forget that night and live the rest of his short life as a normal, boring adolescent. Then again, no one said that being a hero would be easy, or at least it definitely wasn't smart. Despite his best efforts, Alex couldn't shake the pounding headache that abruptly started an hour ago. Usually sitting on his favorite couch watching old game shows with his grandfather put him at ease, but it didn't offer any let up from the pain that night. Alex had always been cautious about taking pills of any kind, but the pain was steadily increasing. The flashing lights from the screen felt unbearable. It was intense, and all the applauding was like a power tool drilling through his mind. He glanced at the tempting bottle of aspirin on the small TV dinner table to his left, but decided against it. It was getting late anyway, so he decided to go to bed and sleep it off, hoping that he would feel better in the morning. Grandpa, I got a killer headache, so I'm fixed to go to bed, okay?
Want me to call a doctor?
As usual, his grandfather was overly cautious at the slightest sign of trouble. What? No, I'm fine, Alex responded.
Of course you won't.
He smiled slightly. Alex's grandfather instinctively looked at the framed picture of Alex's late father above the mantel and told Alex for the 100th time how much he resembled his father in both appearance and demeanor. Alex thought that was a bit eerie, almost as looking at the feature itself in the frame. With his fair skin, blue eyes, bright enough to pierce someone's very soul, yet hair so jet black that the light would never be able to escape its void. Alex was undeniably his father's son. They even smiled the same way.
Just like your old man, trying to tough it out,
he said. But before Alex could even open his mouth to comment, his grandfather looked up with tired eyes and smiled. Sir, Alex replied.
Nothing. Good night, son.
Alex gave a sliver of a smile back. Good night, Grandpa. Alex nervously paced into his bathroom, hoping not to fall over from being so nauseous. He leaned over his sink, wanting to wash the day away. He cupped his hands under the faucet and splashed the lukewarm water across his face. It offered only a split second of relief before his headache began thrashing around in his skull again. He took a look in the bathroom mirror and stared at his reflection. His grandfather's remark once again forced him to think of his parents, who had died when he was just an infant. Since then, he had been raised by his grandfather, a decorated retired police sergeant with more than 30 years of experience on the force. Alex had so much anger inside of him, and no one to direct it at. He was proud of his parents, but angry at them for not being there. With no one to blame, he once again buried his resentment deep inside and dragged his feet down the hall toward his room. He reached for the door handle with apprehension. Maybe tonight will be different, he thought to himself. He slowly turned the handle and went in with his room without incident, thankful that at least one thing went his way that day. Upon entering his room, He took off his shirt, revealing his toned body, a body that he'd acquired from years and years of running track in middle school and high school. Behind him was a wall decorated to its accomplishments. In the sports, everything from ribbons to 2-foot-tall trophies was on display. Alex traced the frame of his bed with his hand before lying down. He wasn't sure if he could climb in without missing the mattress from being too disoriented. He crawled into bed with his laptop in hand. It had become a routine for him to plug in his headphones and fall asleep to songs from his music library. He reached over to the plug to plug in his charger, but instead watched as it sparked and shorted out upon contact with the outlet. Son of a, he thought to himself, and prayed the battery would last long enough for him to fall asleep. He tried his best to settle in bed and scrolled through his thousands of songs that he had illegally downloaded. Alex was confident that the worst was over, but he hadn't gotten past the H section on his playlist before 2 drops of blood splattered on the keyboard. Puzzled, he wiped his nose and stared at the streak of blood coming from the end of his wrist to the tip of his finger. Seriously? It's official. Cursed, he said to himself. Alex gripped his head with agony. For some reason, his headache was getting much worse. Alex finally gave in and turned to his nightstand to get aspirin. He popped the pill, but not even a minute after swallowing, he saw the silhouette of a figure behind the adjacent window curtain. Alex was startled out of bed. He took a couple steps back and again grabbed his head, wanting to literally rip the throbbing torment from his scalp. He squinted his eyes and looked up, but he couldn't make out who the figure was behind the slightly transparent curtain. Who the hell is there? Get out of my room, Alex commanded. As he frantically looked around for a weapon, he picked up his aluminum baseball bat and pointed at the figure.
Drop your bludgeon immediately. I am not here to harm you. I came here to help you.
The mysterious voice said. Screw you, I'm not dropping a thing, he nervously responded.
Screw me, you say?
The figure took a step backward. Look, I'm not afraid to use this, Alex said. He tightened up the grip around his baseball handle and inched over to the wall. He was close enough to the light switch to flick it on. The figure stepped out into the light and revealed itself. Alex couldn't believe his eyes. The thing in front of him stood up straight with perfect posture and had amber-colored skin with black tribal markings that circulated and flowed in steady motion throughout the surface of his body and face. It had sleek, battle-scarred armor covered in most of its body and perfectly placed cryptic metals that signified to Alex that this creature had seen many battles that were attached to its sleeve. It proudly walked over closer to Alex and sternly said,
You would dare raise a hand at me? I could leave your planet to die right now.
But the words were blurred to him. Alex couldn't get over its appearance. It had the curvatures of a woman, but her eyes had pitch black corneas and white pupils, the opposite of a human. However, the real distinction was that they were sideways like cat eyes, which reminded him of the frogs his science teacher had forced him to dissect in middle school. He gauged her to be about 6 feet tall and noticed that she had thin black tendrils on her head instead of hair, which she had tied back. Her armor radiated its own dazzling light and was mostly royal blue with white accents and silver-colored painting. Her pants were white with blue stripes that ran up her thigh and accentuated her curves. Alex dropped the baseball bat and gasped for air. He backed himself up against the wall as he prayed for the power to phase through. But the best he could do was look around for something to grab onto so he wouldn't fall down from the shock. He was either looking at the best Halloween costume he had ever seen, or there was a real-life alien in front of him.
I have not the time nor patience for this, so listen well. I am known as Shira, from distant planet world called Cowring.
With speed faster than Alex could react to, she closed the gap between them and grabbed his forearm.
I have come here to prepare your race for fight. Now let us go.
Her skin was clammy but warm, not like anything he had ever felt before. Whoa, what? You're hurting my arm. Let go of me, Alex said.
Either your race is slow to learn or unable to grasp the concept of total annihilation. But if we do not act now, trust me when I say you will perish. Tanaka means to kill you off, but it still may be possible to save your kind.
Shira said. Zena, what? How do you even... Alex stared, but his ability to form complex sentences escaped him at the moment.
Do I look to be in a gaming mood?
She let go of his arm and let out a deep, frustrated sigh. Negotiations clearly were not her strong suit.
I know you're scared, human, but we have not the time. This is your life from now on, like it or not. Now we must go and prepare for training.
I'm not going anywhere with you. Just stay back, okay? Alex couldn't find his bearings.
What did you say to me? Did you not hear what I said?
Oh no, I heard you. Now it's your turn to hear me. That is the best damn cosplay I've ever seen, but if you don't get out of my room, I'm calling the cops.
Why, you insolent little. To die for your planet is the line of duty, is a great honor.
Die, he thought to himself. He was nowhere near ready to die. Grandpa! Alex tried to scream, but the creature threw her hands over his mouth to muffle the cry before he could finish.
I sincerely hope it is not always going to be like this with you.
Shira removed her hand from his mouth. Allow me to show you why am I...
Ready?
Allow me to show you why I'm here, Shira approached. Alex like someone meeting a dog for the first time. Hesitant, her hand slowly got closer to Alex's forehead. Alex began to sweat, frozen in place from fear. He clamped his eyes shut as he prepared for the end, but only felt her slightly coarse skin on his forehead. In an instant, a flash of light blinded his vision, but he was okay. Much to his relief, the alien was gone. That's it. I'm never taking aspirin again. He got up from his bed to see if his grandpa was still awake. Even he would love a crazy hallucination like that. It was too quiet. Alex slowly walked down the steps and saw that the TV was blown and smoking. Grandpa Henry? He cautiously said. But there was no answer. On the last step, Alex could see his grandfather's head sticking up from the couch. He must already be asleep, he thought to himself, as he walked over to wake his grandpa. Grandpa, you're not going to believe the dream. But when he saw, his grandfather had been stabbed and cleaved open. As if having been carved like a turkey wasn't bad enough, there was a single bullet hole centered on his forehead. Oh my God, Grandpa, what the hell is this? Alex felt powerless and paralyzed. His grandfather was dead because he hadn't been there for him. Alex heard the back door to his house slam and immediately looked up. The murderer was still close. Alex clenched his fist and went off running to the door. He saw only a darkened figure run out toward the street. Alex stayed in pursuit but couldn't make out who it was. He quickly made it to the streets, but his neighborhood looked different. Fires were scattered sporadically across the area, and row after row of two-story houses had been partially blown up. The streets lay to ruins. He ran forward, not knowing if the trail of destruction was the right path, but praying he would get answers at its end. His heart pounded out of his chest faster than it ever had before. Tremors of crippling fear ran down his spine, and his legs would not stop moving. The image of his gutted grandfather was all the drive he needed. He persisted halfway down the street when suddenly an ear-shattering whistling stopped him in his tracks. He looked up and again watched a small black orb with a fire-lit tail descend to the ground. On impact, the orb exploded. A loud crack went off in the distance, and a mushroom cloud emanated from its location. Alex was distraught. It looked as if World War III had started without him knowing it. The light from the explosion faded at the night sky, blotting out any stars from sight. The only thing visible were dozens of gigantic black motherships, the likes of which he had never seen. In seconds, the blast brought a shockwave and blinding light that vaporized Alex in seconds. He snapped back to reality in a cold sweat, gasping for air, unsure of what was real or fake. The process left him debilitated, as all his senses felt like they were on fire. What the hell was that? Where was I? What did you do to me, Alex stammered?
Calm down. I showed but a glimpse of what fate will befall your planet if you do not take action now. Earth is very large, yet very insufficient in the grand scheme of things. But it is only the world you have ever known. Am I correct? The people have not gotten past your own galaxy, yes?
She inquired. It was all just a vision. His grandfather was still alive. Alex gritted his teeth in an unfiltered rage. I'll kill you, Alex said in a fit of blinding rage. He raised his hand to strike, but she flicked her wrist and slammed Alex to the ground. He landed with a thud and immediately got the wind knocked out of him.
Enough. You are hundreds years too early to be challenging me. I am not your enemy, human. Zanako did far worse to my world, and unlike yours, we actually stood a chance. Understand, I am here to help you.
If you want to help me, get out of my room and never come back. I can't help you.
If you want to save your family, you have no choice.
Thinking that he still might be hallucinating, Alex rubbed his eyes and reached for a nearby doorknob. So why me, he asked. Am I like the one or something?
No, I'm afraid you are not special. You're not that special. You just so happen to be the most inclined to the type of violence.
I see. Well, that's cool, Alex said in a sly fashion. The creature noticed his attempt to escape and telekinetically locked the door shut.
Your planet is being threatened. I believe you have the ability to save it. Now tell me, will you?
Look, this is all really too much. I won't tell anyone I saw you, so please, just go, Alex stammered.
I cannot. You are very unique young. I suppose man? I don't know when your species reaches adulthood, but regardless, you are meant to stop the greatest evil that has come to pass in both of our histories.
I can't. Even if what you say is true, I just can't leave. I start college in the spring, Alex answered. Seeing that the conversation was going nowhere, she paused momentarily.
That device over there seems to run on electricity. Hand it to me.
Alex was dubious of her intentions, but he didn't feel like he was in a position to argue. She cut the computer's charging cord in half with a snap of her fingers, and Alex's eyes widened. I had to work hard for that computer, he shouted.
Stop being such an infant. You are technologically a millennium behind schedule anyway.
She took his hands in hers. She took his hands in hers and put them over the ends of the cord.
Now make it work.
How? Alex asked her. Her eyes locked on his.
My ship's scanners detected a strong reading for electrokinesis from this residence. Now fix this cord.
This is a waste of time. I don't even know what that is. You got the wrong person, he said.
Do not.
Her tone dropped to a threatening modulation.
Waste my time, Earthling.
Fear took over Alex. What do you want me to do? Just press the wires together and see what happens? I could die.
My patience wears thin, Earthling. Make the stream of electricity to bond the two cords.
I don't know how, he frantically said. Shara placed her hands over her mouth. Her body language suggested that she was concerned with his lack of kinetic comprehension.
Perhaps my father was right about the potential of this planet.
She moved in closer until she was face to face with Alex.
Visualize an electrical connection between the two cords.
Shara instructed. Confused, Alex held the wires and tried to see some sort of electrical bond between them in his mind. Nothing at first, but then he felt some sort of warm sensation flow through his arm to his hands, but kept his eyes shut. As he was focused on imagining, the computer turned on and began to reboot.
Good, very good indeed.
She remarked.
What do they call you?
Alexander Carter, but everyone just calls me Alex.
Very well, Alexander. I have come as a guardian to save your planet from invasion. Now gather your things, we are leaving.
I keep telling you, I can't just pick up and leave. I have a life here. And how do I know you aren't just trying to abduct me so you can perform some kind of gross experiment? I've heard how this kind of stuff usually goes.
Trust me, human. If I wanted to abduct you, I would have done it by now.
Fair enough, he responded. Alex stared in disbelief. He has always hoped that he was meant for something greater in this world. That he wasn't just another kid out of Houston, Texas. But never in his wildest dreams did he imagine this. What about my grandfather? He asked. Shara replied.
No one can know where we go. Our training must be in seclusion. I will give you one last chance to say goodbye.
What kind of training? Alex asked. Shara reminded him.
You have 10 minutes. Better make it quick.
I can't just leave him. I'm all he's got, Alex said.
Then your grandfather is already dead. Odd though. I thought you were a hero, but I was mistaken. I prayed this not to at least slaughter you and your family quickly without torture. Good day, Alexander Carter.
With that, she turned and headed toward the window. Wait, Alex called after her. She grinned upon his stopping, but wiped the smile from her face before turning around. Swear to me that if I go with you, he'll live, he said.
I will guard his life myself if need be.
She promised him. Alex stared at her. Doing nothing was a risk that he could not take. Putting his family first was something he learned from a very early age. Though petrified, he finally gave in. I'll go with you, he finally said.
Of course you will. Now go make your preparations so we can depart.
Alex walked out and headed toward his grandfather's bedroom. Quietly and carefully, he entered the room. Can I talk to you, Grandpa? Alex said.
Of course, Alex. Come in,
said Grandpa Henry with a smile. Alex walked through the doorway and looked in awe at the wall of plaques and awards his grandfather and late father had earned throughout the years, like he always did before finally confessing what was wrong with mine. You have always told me I was destined for great things, Alex said.
because you are, Alex.
His grandfather proudly told him. Well, there is something that I must do. It's the reason I was born, I think, but I promise that I'll come back.
What are you talking about, son? I'm confused.
Please, Grandpa, you gotta trust me on this, Alex continued. I have to go now, but I love you.
Absolutely not.
His grandfather said.
I lost your father. I'm not losing you too. You're all I have left of me.
The last thing Alex wanted to do was abandon his grandfather, but he knew his grandfather was strong and still had a lot of life left in him. He would be fine, but the thought of leaving him broke his heart nonetheless. Granddad, I promise, I'll be back. And I'll make you proud of me. Just watch.
Alex, I'm already proud of you. Whatever you're thinking about doing, you don't have to do. I don't want to hear another word about this. We can discuss this more in the morning.
Alex looked straight at him. Yes, sir. Good night, Grandpa. Alex walked back to his room with his decision already made. This time, Grandpa, I do. Alex came back to the bedroom to pack his stuff, while Shara stood at the edge of the windowsill, drawing her fingers along the frame. Mildly bemused by the dust, she murmured,
Dirty creatures.
Hum! Alex cleared his throat to make her aware of his presence. She turned to him and asked how it had gone. Alex didn't respond to her intrusive question. Instead, he just glared at her and went to grab an empty duffel bag as he wiped any trace of tears from his cheeks.
Very well.
She said.
Grab your things and let's be off.
Alex packed for a trip that he knew he may never come back from. If he was going to die, he wanted to be surrounded by the things that meant the most to him. Even though Shara instructed him to pack light, he brought along clothes, a few medals, wall posters, his laptop, a a framed photo of his grandfather and late parents. He followed Shira out of the window, and Shira shot up in the sky with Alex on her back. If Alex had any doubts of her story, they were gone by now. Shira traveled under the blanket of night to a spot in the woods. Where they landed, Alex rubbed the sleep out of his eyes. "What are we doing here?" he asked. Shira replied,
I need to gauge the current level of your power so I know where to start training. It is something that every Esper goes through.
"I don't know what you're talking about. What's an Esper?" Alex said.
An Esper is someone with extrasensory perception. Now show me your power.
Once again, Alex wasn't budging any. The alien expected too much from him. She attacked Alex with a telekinetic push that flung him into a nearby tree. He slammed into its bark with an echoing thud and then crashed to the ground on his stomach. With the little breath he had remaining from the blow, he screamed out, "What the hell did you do that for?"
Motivation, Alexander. Do you require more of it?
Shira jumped into a fighting position. She lunged after Alex, ready to throw another telekinetic push. Alex ran away, though, through the trees and over the logs, and picked up speed. He recklessly closed his eyes and began concentrating. A spark flashed, and he vanished through the night. Alex looped around and tackled Shira to the ground. They both rolled on the ground for several feet before stopping.
Electrokinesis, like I thought. It would appear that it only manifests when your life is in danger, though.
Shira said.
Get some rest. We train in the morning.
"What, here?" Alex asked. Shira grinned with a few push buttons on her wrist. And a gadget revealed that her once cloaked spaceship.
No, in there.
She corrected. The spaceship looked deceivingly neat at first glance, like a metallic stingray. Alex peered inside and was left speechless at its vastness. There were long hallways that led to plenty of bedrooms for a crew of people. Shira's ship had many features. To Alex, the technology looked like it was straight out of a Hollywood movie. The craft's most important attribute was its ability to float, by either becoming invisible to the human eye or changing its shape of any proportional object that Shira could download through a connection to Earth's internet. The ship was docked in a treeless patch she found in the forest closest to Alex's high school. When uncloaked, it looked like a very high-tech alien spacecraft. The ship was round, but not perfectly round. It had its own shape. The bottom of the ship was flat, and around the edges shifted up and down like a ripple effect. The thrusters were all around the edge and one thruster was on the bottom of it for lift. The tail of the ship was long and it acted like a stabilizer. Turret guns were located to the front, and the dim light on it glowed and seemed like it would come through the darkness.
Hurry, Alexander. We are moving the ship to the mountains of Colorado?
Shira said. "You mean Colorado? Why there?" Alex asked.
That is where the first guy crashed.
"You mean there are actually more of you here?"
All your questions will be answered in due time, Alexander. But now, we must leave.
They entered the craft, and Shira had Alex sit down while she prepped the ship and activated his cloaking device. They soared through the night sky under the veil of nightfall, and within a half hour they were nestled away in a remote area halfway up Mount Elbert in Colorado. Alex was assigned a room that was completely bare and stripped of everything besides the essentials: a bed, a metal chair, and a dresser, and a lamp. He resided there for the rest of the night, though he got no sleep for hours. He spent the entire night staring out the window into the endless forest of Colorado. He must have questioned himself hundreds of times, wondering if it was all real, or he was going to wake up any minute and find himself back at home with Grandpa Henry. But it never happened. Alex was going to get the chance to be a hero he dreamed of being, whether he liked it or not. The woods were a perfect training spot. Plenty of ground, cover, and privacy. Hunting season was over, so there was not another human in sight. The brisk mountain air was much colder than Alex had anticipated, and the wild animals howled, making sounds that shook him to the very core. Shira woke Alex at the crack of dawn, and while his eyes were barely open, she flung him outside and began training. He landed face first on the ground, motionless, still unable to shake the headache he suffered from the night before.
Rise, Alexander. You can sleep when you're dead.
He glared at her for the unnecessary comment. "Not cool, Shira. I'll sleep when I'm tired."
You will sleep when I say you can sleep,
she firmly said, but Alex just rolled his eyes at her, completely uninterested in what she had to teach. "This is dumb. I can shoot electricity from my hands. I don't need to train. Why don't you just show me where to point and I'll shoot," she said.
You insolent little... Is your entire species as this abrasive, or is it a pubescent thing? Listen here, Alexander. You have these abilities is like tossing an X-57 plasma cannon to a new recruit and sending him into battle without any training. He's going to get a lot of people killed. By itself, having kinetic powers does not make you any more qualified to be a superhero than having a gun makes you qualified to be a soldier. Now stop wasting my time and prepare yourself.
Shira moved in closer and closer. She closed her eyes.
First off, Alexander, take a deep breath and channel the power that has always been inside you. Meditation is the beginning of mastering your abilities. Once you grasp that, you can utilize your power, and the headaches I know you have been feeling will go away, Shire explained.
What's the deal with that anyway? Ever since you showed up, it's like bombs continues to going off in my head.
You are not used to the kinetic pressure. Beings with a high signature naturally emit a kinetically charged, pressurized aura. What you are feeling right now is mine. With time, you will grow accustomed to them and even learn to mask your own.
She explained. The sooner the better. I don't know how much more of this I can take.
Focus. Feel the energy surging through your body. Visualize the sparks that flicker, beginning to be released.
Even though Alex was listening intently, he couldn't help but laugh. You sound like Mr. Miyagi.
I don't know who this person of whom you speak is, but I will advise you not to interrupt me again. Now bring your hands inches apart and concentrate the energy between them.
All right, whatever, said to her.
Depending on the person's or species, there can be several different kinds of kinesis. To this day, we are still discovering different types.
Understood, he said. Alex began sparking electric current surges through one hand to another. It was pathetic at first, but for the next hour he focused on holding it.
The more you use your kinesis, the stronger and more in control you will be.
Shire explained. Alex smiled with enthusiasm at the possibilities. Do you always have to talk so cryptically? Look, you ripped me away from my family because of some alien war. Stop beating around the bush, he demanded.
Listen here, human. I ripped you away from your insignificant life, as you so elegantly put, because it's not who will be here someday, and you are nowhere near ready for them.
She retorted. Clearly frustrated, Alex snapped. Okay, new plan. You deal with them, and when they get here, I'm going back home, he said as he started walking in the other direction.
I will have no choice but to Alexander. They have undoubtedly picked up on my kinetic signature and tracked me down.
Shire explained. Good, problem solved. Now beam me back home, or whatever it is you do, Alex said.
Though faint, they will find yours as well, along with anyone else who emits kinetic energy, and they will most likely hunt you down one by one, and then kill your loved ones. I am the only chance you have to prevent that.
She confidently said. Enough of this crap. I want to know exactly what I'm up against. Who are these Zanaku?
I could try to explain them to you, but I do not think that you are ready for that.
She responded. How about you let me be the judge of that? Tell me what happened.
To appreciate the horrors of war, it is something that I must show you.
Okay, he responded in confusion.
I'm going to telepathically link with you. Just relax your mind and clear your thoughts.
Alex did as instructed, and Shire's eyes began to emit a white glow. In a flash, Alex was seeing the collective memories of citizens and soldiers of Caloran. But what was truly shocking was the landscape. He looked around and marveled at its sheer beauty. All the trees gleamed with luster, and they were covered with pristine white bark and shimmering golden leaves. The lake next to them was crystal clear and shined like the glint of light broken on glass. In the distance, he saw deep blue mountains that scaled the land. Towering skyscrapers shrouded the city. The beautifully crafted architecture was on a level he had never seen before. Everything was peaceful until he reached a horrifying reality. He was stuck on an alien world with no way to get back. That's chapter 1.
Unfortunately, we don't have any time to read any further.
First question: how did you come up with the planet, the storyline? You know, but what was the basis?
Well, we're really big into like comics and like superheroes and stuff like that, and we're really big into sci-fi and everything. So we kind of like have like this memory of everything we've seen, and we just kind of create our own stuff, you know.
We wanted to take the best attributes of a lot of the more recognizable stories that you've heard of Star Wars, Star Trek, and we just wanted to put it all together to make something really amazing.
But more importantly, we tried to be as original as possible. You have a question?
How do you divide up the rating chores? Who
Yeah, she
writes
gets
what?
asked that a lot.
It all depends on how we're feeling on the day. Like if I feel like doing like a fight scene, I'll handle the fight scene. If Greg feels like doing the fight scene, he'll handle the fight scene. But more or less, we just divide it between chapters. You know.
We try to cater to each other's strengths. Laz is good at writing action scenes. I tend to focus more on character development and things of that nature a lot. So that's kind of how we broke it up. And hopefully, by the time you read the book, you won't be able to tell where I write or Laz writes. It'll just be seamless and be one story.
How did you guys meet and hook up as co-writers?
Oh well, Greg was actually an employee at a Mazda dealership where I started working, and we kind of just hit it off as friends at the dealership. And then he showed me his story. This is all his story, and like he gave me a bunch of notes and everything like that, and I was really interested into it. So I kind of just took all of his notes, read everything, and like matched it all together to make a story, and we just worked together that way. Like I fell in love with his story as soon as he told it to me.
I told you again.
And that's really how we started this whole book.
Yes.
I will as soon as Kinetic goes.
Where's the little
That
girl?
is Kinetic First Lines. Like we said, it's
She's
going to be
gonna
the
do one
first
chapter?
series.
She'll sing?
First book in a
First
series.
book,
Sing in
the three-part
between
series.
one
The next book is going to be called Kinetic Insurrection. So if you like the first book, trust us, you're going to love the second book. And thank you.
We got everyone.
The reason that people are here is because
You just did
The
it
book's
totally
available for
wrong.
purchases. Absolutely. Find whatever you want.
yes. She's gonna play a little song on the bass and then
Let's just get out of the way for the other.
Sorry, what did you want me?
Hey, finally made it. So, dear Lisa?
Dear Lisa. She writes herself very American.
This author's here.
Ajane is gonna entertain us with one song,
Hello,
and
sorry.
then Alexis is gonna be.
I'm knocking down things. Oh my goodness. Oh gosh. So this song is called Ho Hey. It's a little bit of audience participation if you guys would like. Some people might know the song, so you can help out, but it's you just basically say ho, hey, and I'll sort of cue you in, but it should be fun if it works out.